want to go back before we get into how you flipped it and what we can all learn from you, because I suspect every single person is going to take something away tactically from what you're going to talk about. So let's talk about what you were doing, how you were feeling and thinking when you decided, you know what, turns out this isn't everything I thought it would be.
Sure. So I think that there's two big flips that I tend to lump together when I tell my story. But the first one occurred as I was approaching 5 years in a sales role. I used to do telecommunication sales and business to business. And so as I was approaching this, what felt like a milestone in that particular career, I kept feeling like there is something else that I want to do. I want to really explore what I'm here to do on this earth. Why was I created? What do people really get from me? I don't want to just be a cog in this big wheel. And so that was the first time I felt like I needed a shift. The second time was when I moved into another corporate job. So I moved from corporate sales to corporate sales training. And that role to me was the epitome of what I thought I wanted to do in corporate. And it was through that experience that I realized, okay, I am stepping deeper into what I feel my passions are, what I feel my purpose is. But ultimately, this isn't the final place. This isn't my final destination. And so that's when I finally made the leap into full-time entrepreneurship. So in between those two positions, I think that in the first role, misery is probably the best word I can think of to describe how I was feeling. I was overwhelmed and overworked. If anybody's ever worked a sales job, they know it's not a typical 9 to 5. It mirrors entrepreneurship in a lot of ways, I think. And you may have to work around the clock. You're managing relationships. And in telecommunications, I was helping customers keep their internet connections going. So internet connection could go down at 7 or 8 p.m. and I was expected to be available. I was expected to respond to customers. And so I just felt like I never got a break from work, and the work I was doing wasn't fulfilling me. So that created this feeling of kind of being a little bit miserable, being very unhappy. And I didn't know how to manage that stress. So I overate, I binge watched television shows, I was on social all the time. I did a lot of drinking and partying with friends, a lot of sleeping at the same time. And so I just felt very much like I was in this rut, and I knew there had to be more to life than that experience that I was having. When I moved into my training role, things were so much better. Like I said, I felt so much closer to my passions, but I still felt this desire to do my own thing. I really felt like I'm expressing myself in a different way, in a way that feels more fulfilling, but I don't really have autonomy over how I get to express myself. And that's why entrepreneurship is so important to me.
Couple of things in what you said, Jessica. I think it's so important, especially for people in their 20s or people parenting people in their 20s, to think about, just because you graduated with a degree and you're doing what you thought you wanted to do doesn't mean you have to be miserable. Yes, that like the first couple of jobs, like it's harder. You're expected to kind of learn the ropes, right? And there's all this corporate culture stuff you've never done, but that doesn't mean that you have to settle. And so many people do. And then they retire and they're like, well, that was terrible. Like, it doesn't have to be terrible, but you have to like stop and ask the question all the time, is this still fulfilling me? And most people don't. So it was really, I think, profound that you in your 20s said, you know what, not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of my story is becoming a minimalist. When I was in corporate sales, I, again, reached this kind of rock bottom point, and I was trying a lot of things. I was starting to get into meditation, and I tried yoga. And then I stumbled upon this concept of minimalism, and I really felt like I didn't have anything else to lose. So let me just try it. I'm hearing these great things, and people are finding this sense of freedom. And so I just decided to try it. And that was what really, I guess, moved the needle for me. That was what created the desire to create a change in that part of my journey and look for new roles and then ultimately become an entrepreneur full time.
So you had the one job, you switched to another job, a little bit better, still not the right thing. And then you discovered the concept of minimalism. So people define that a lot of different ways. Some people, it's the decluttering concept. Sometimes it's, we had a woman on who lived in a car for a while. Like, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So where did you start and how do you define that?
Sure. So I finished this book about mindfulness, and Amazon recommended this 21-day minimalism challenge. So it was totally out of left field, didn't know anything about this at all. And it wasn't even by a well-known minimalist in that particular space. It was just this kind of random audiobook. But that challenge for me, it taught me about intentionality. And I think that's what minimalism really boils down to. Am I being intentional about the way that I live my life? Am I intentional about the work I do? Am I intentional about how I spend my money, how I spend my time? That's really what it boils down to, because in my life at that time, it was just following the status quo, I felt. And like you mentioned, for so many people after they graduate college, especially if college has been something that their parents have often held up on this pedestal, at the same time, what the next step in that journey is, well, you go get a job and then you work there until you retire. And so I just felt like I was on this path and I didn't really know where it was going. I just hoped that in the end it would lead to something really great. It would be what everyone told me it was going to become. And that's when I found minimalism, I realized I can actually be really thoughtful about this. I can be really intentional about where this journey leads.
And you talked about basically the difference in asking a question, is this what I want to do versus is this what I should do? And most people stick to like, well, this is what I should do. Like especially in homes where the college degree is the job and the benefits is the thing put on a pedestal. It's really tough when you get there, and then to have the bravery to say, this isn't really the pedestal that I want anymore. So that's
Right.
fantastic. So you talked about living with intentionality, but you also you just decluttering, and you lost weight. And so I'm interested to hear your perspective on, did the mindset shift allow you to then, lose weight and get more healthy habits, or did just focus on intentionality do that? How are those two things related?
Yeah, I really believe that it was the intentionality, and by that, the actions that I took first that then shaped a new mindset. Minimalism. So speaking about the weight loss, for example, when I started decluttering, I went into my kitchen and I had to clear out all the stuff I wasn't using. What things were just spoiling in my fridge, what stuff was in my pantry that was well past its expiration date, what was freezer burnt. And I started to realize, wow, I spend so much money on foods I'm never going to eat. And more specifically, I spend so much money on things that the world told me I should be eating that I'm never actually going to eat. And that was a pattern. Like you mentioned, the word should showed up in every aspect of my life. So when I started taking action to say, well, what do I actually love to eat? What would I eat over and over and over again? Then I was more excited about preparing my own meals. And that was really the shift for me. It was less time in the drive-through and more time preparing my meals in the kitchen. And as a result of that, it became a snowball. I was taking better care of my nutrition, and then I wanted to exercise more. I wanted to be more intentional with my time after work and not just sit in front of the television and watch social media, because I was seeing all this progress happen. So to me, it was the decluttering helped me really sort through my life and what I believed, and taking action helped me to recognize that I could have a new experience and subsequently a new belief about what it means to create my life.
And then you created new habits. And all of what you're talking about reminds me so much of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It's really about these habits. And once you get and it's a flywheel, once you get the good habits going, you want more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have bad habits going, you want more of that.
Yes, absolutely. And something he talks about in that book as well is identity-based habits. And we all typically start from the outcome or the process, right? So I want to lose weight, or I want to start preparing better meals. And the identity is where you see this long-term change. And I think that's what grew over time as I was decluttering these different aspects of my life. I wanted to become someone who defined life for myself instead of being defined by the shoulds that were given to me.
Makes so much sense. I was at my book club last night, actually, my neighborhood book club, and we're currently in the Lenten season. So people who are Christian faith are in Lenten season, and people do all sorts of different things. And this woman told me that she has done for years, every day for 40 days, she throws something out. And then someone else said that she's got a friend who takes a drawer and cleans like 40 different cabinets or drawers or pantries, which I have never heard. So, but even something like connected to a 40-day plan, that is a habit. So it's really interesting how things that people do connected to even holidays or celebrations can turn into something that creates a healthy habit. And in 40 days, you're going to see results.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what mindset is all about, right? Our mindset, our belief systems, they're based on experiences. So the more that we get these new experiences, the more comfortable we become with testing this new mindset and ultimately believing we can create something different.
I saw this play out in my own life when I lost my job and things were difficult in a few fronts at my house and my kids were little. My storage closet was such a mess. Like it was such a mess. And I think it was this, what happens physically is what's happening mentally. And mentally, I was shoving stuff away that I wasn't ready yet to deal with. And you just have to get through the day. And I was doing that physically with my storage room. And when I finally got to a healthier place and a more stable place with just my thoughts, then I was able to tackle that kind of big project. And then when we moved 3 years ago, when my younger son was like 11, I found 4 boxes of maternity clothes. Like there's no reason a person who isn't going to have children has 4 boxes of maternity clothes. But I sort of became this weird hoarder and just shove stuff in this closet. And it's something so powerful that happens when you clean your physical space. And now I always say, I can go into someone's storage room or places where people don't see, and I can tell how healthy they are, which that's like probably not scientifically proven. But when my storage room is in a good place, I'm in a good place. When it's a hot mess, I'm a hot mess.
Yes, that is so true. Our physical clutter is really just the manifestation of what's happening in our heart and in our mind. And it's interesting that you talked about the storage units, because something that I learned, I'm an achiever. I've always achieved academically, professionally. And what I realized is that for the achiever or for the person who has this perfectionist mindset, their clutter is never really seen. Their lives always look very, very put together, but everything is shoved away. And I see that as a metaphor for the lives we lead as well. My life looked really good on the outside. There were people who maybe envied what I had. My parents were really proud of me. I was making all of these big strides, but I was unhappy. Everything that I truly wanted was shoved away. And so we think about clutter oftentimes as being this overwhelming amount of stuff, but everybody has clutter, but everybody's clutter isn't seen. And it's really about the kind of lives that we lead that determines what our clutter looks like.